Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's basement of horror. Today we're going to look at the Mego Wave 8 monster figures. These toys were originally supposed to come out a year ago, fall of 2019, but there have been many delays and we've been given a lot of different reasons for the delays. But now here we are, September 2020, and they are finally here. They are real. They are in our hands. The Wave 8, at this point, the mythical, legendary Mego Wave 8 monster figures that many people thought they would never see because of all the delays and all the varied reasons given for the delays. A lot of people doubted we would see them, and frankly, I wasn't sure that these would really come out. I was kind of, I don't know. It seemed kind of iffy, but here they are. So let's take a look. The most sought after figure in the set is probably the paper. This is very rare. The deluxe paper action figure. More paper. Okay, finally we're getting down to some toys. So this is the box that it was shipped to me. This is the box that I received it in. This is the shipping box. And let's see here. Who did I buy these from? Zolo's Room. ZLC Collectibles. Zolo's Room. That's who I purchased them from. And they arrived in good shape. So it's the first time buying anything from Zolo's Room. And they were packed well. And as soon as they were available, they were shipped promptly. So I had a good experience with Zolo's Room. I might buy from them again. Okay, so here is the first figure in the box. And this is the Fly. And you notice it is labeled Legend. Most of them say horror, some say sci-fi. This one says Legend, and we'll get back to that, why that is. Here is the Fly. Obviously based on the 1950s 20th Century Fox science fiction movie that co-starred Vincent Price. The movie was based on a short story, a French short story called The Fly. But this character design is clearly based on the movie. In the short story, The Fly, and I have read it, when the Fly finally emerges at the end, and we see the full Fly, he's not just a fly, he's mixed with a cat. Because in the movie, the 50s movie, you'll remember, if you've seen it, that the scientist puts his cat in the teleporter to test the machine, and the cat disappears. And that's the last you see of it in the movie. In the story, and I don't remember if it's a short story or if it's a novella, but it's not a novel. It's not a full-length novel. I remember it being a short story, but it could have been a novella. In the story, the cat also, he tests the machine on the cat, and the cat disappears, but its atoms and its pattern are stored in the machine. He doesn't know that. So when he goes through trying to unfly himself, he gets mixed with the atoms of the cat. So when he emerges, he's a cat-fly hybrid. So his head is part fly, part cat. So that's the story, the original story on which the film was based. So this toy obviously is based on the movie, the 20th Century Fox motion picture, where he never becomes a cat hybrid, he's just a fly. This figure has a blue striped tie. Some have a red striped tie. I don't know why they had two versions of the tie, but for some reason some have red ties and some have blue ties. This one has a blue tie. And I don't really feel the need to buy a red striped tie. I don't really care. I mean, one is fine for me. This figure's plenty. I don't need variations. So we see on the back. Now, this fly in the artwork is probably stock art. And here it's repeated here. But you see in the background, that's the David Cronenberg fly. So 20th Century Fox remade the fly in 1986 with David Cronenberg directing and Jeff Goldblum starring. And that is Brundlefly. That's the 80s fly back there. Oh, let's see here. We have the same Marty Abrams bar on the back with his face. We saw that in previous waves. And they have the special thanks. Now, some people ask, why don't I talk about who sculpted it or who did the costume? And I've said before, I'll say it again, I just don't like to get personal. I don't want to deal with individual names, because if I want to be perfectly free to say the costume stinks, the sculpt stinks, the whole toy stinks. I don't want it to get personal, and so I'm saying that, you know, so-and-so's costume design is no good, or so-and-so's sculpt is no good. I want to keep things impersonal and objective. So that's why I don't get into the names of the sculptor and the seamstress and the graphic designer and all that. I just want to judge the toy itself, not the people who made it. So I don't want things to get personal. Now on the back, and we won't do this for every figure, but since it's the first one we're looking at, on the back you see it's got this little box that the previous waves of monster figures did not have. And it says, World's Greatest Mego Monsters. That's interesting. World's Greatest Mego Monsters. Because the original Mego superheroes were the world's greatest superheroes. And then when Azrak Hanway did their Mego style Universal monsters, like you know, this is one. This is an Azrak Hanway creature from the 70s. When Azrak Hanway did that series, they called it Official World Famous Super Monsters. So Mego is hearkening, new Mego is hearkening back to its past, branding this as World's Greatest Mego Monsters. So that's new, that's a different thing. But they didn't put it on the front, they only put it on the back and very small. Very small. I wonder why they didn't blazon it up, you know, emblazon it on the front. I mean, that'd be kind of a nice move to really brand it that way and go big on that, you know, World's Greatest Mego Monsters, but they didn't do that. The figure itself, I mean, it's a nice figure. I've seen some videos of this loose. So from what I've seen photos of them loose. How can I put this? Aesthetically, they tend to deteriorate quickly when you take them off the card. In other words, they look very sharp on the card, but from what I've seen, photos and video that I've seen, once you take it off the card and you start messing with it and, you know, moving it around, taking its clothes off and on, it starts to look dodgier and dodgier. But the same can be said of a lot of action figures. They look really nice in the package, but when you remove them, as soon as you start playing with them, they start to look like a mess. And that's my observation with these, that they look a lot better left on the card, which is good for me because I intend to leave them on the card. I'm not taking these off the card. As the MIB master would say, I'm an MIB collector. I'm a mint in box or mint in package collector. I don't remove my toys from the package. So on the package, it looks very nice. And the lab coat is excellent on the package. In the package, it looks great. Pants, I like the pants. I like everything. They made, and the head sculpt is original. It's not a direct copy of any previous sculpt. And that's a pretty good, original take on the Fly. Kind of monstrous, kind of like an alien Fly. A little more of an aggressive look to the character than he usually has. And he's got the claw hand, the Fly hand. And interestingly, Mego made his entire body black. Everything's black, because I've seen videos of this toy naked where reviewers took all the clothes off, and his entire body is black. And I don't know why they chose to do that. I mean, that's different. I mean, it's an interesting way to go, but that's not accurate to the character. And he's not black as in like an African American human being with brown skin. He's black, like jet black, in an unnatural kind of way. So I don't know if it's supposed to be like, he's a fly and flies are black, and so he's all black. I'm not sure why they made that decision, but it's interesting. It's different, and I suspect that's why they're trying to differentiate it from the 20th Century Fox movie Fly and trying to make it different. It concerns me because a lot of new Mego, a lot of their clothing that's black, the figures that have black clothing, the black dye stains the body underneath. So I've seen pictures of modern Mego figures that had black clothing where people would take the clothing off and show what the naked figure looks like, and it's stained purple everywhere that black clothing touched the body. So that's what the clothing does. I don't know if the black body, the dye in the black plastic, is going to stain the clothes, because he's got a lot of white clothes, obviously. Look at all that white. If that gets stained, it's really going to affect the the aesthetic quality of the figure. I'd hate to see all this turn purple. I guess time will tell. But that would really ruin the look of the figure. Let's compare this to the classic action figure that it's based on. Because they didn't just look at the movie and say, let's do that. They were inspired by a classic 1970s action figure. And this is the toy that they were inspired by. This is the Tomlin Famous Monsters of Legend, The Fly. This is from the late 70s. This was an unlicensed figure. This set, the original set, had the Yeti, the Cyclops, the Morlock from H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, and the Fly. And on the back, it has the legend of the monster. And by calling these Famous Monsters of Legend, I'm sure Tomlin hoped to get around any copyright issues that, this isn't a movie monster, it's a monster of legend. But of course, there's no legend of the Fly. It's a movie monster. And the figure is clearly inspired. I mean, the Mego figure is clearly inspired by the Tomlin figure. It's a modern take on the Tomlin figure. And as a modern take, it's pretty good. I think it's a good modern interpretation of the classic figure. It doesn't rip it off. You know, it's not a complete copy of it. It's inspired by it, but it's has modern, you know, sculpting aesthetics. It's not sculpted with this really, you know, old school, childlike, simplistic design. It's more modern and realistic. Which one do I like better? Well, of course, I like the original one better. And not just because I'm nostalgic or old school. I think that for its day, this is more important and special than this. And the reason is there's really nothing extraordinary about a fly figure like this today, but it was very extraordinary in the 70s to have a figure of the fly. That was really unusual and different and new. And this is hearkening back to this. So this is, I always try to judge things in the context of their day. And in the context of the time this was made, this was really significant. This is, you know, it's not bad, but it's not as amazing as the fact that in the 1970s we had an action figure of the fly. So that's why this new Mego figure says Legend on the card. Instead of horror or sci-fi or monster or whatever, like some of the other cards, this one says Legend, because it's hearkening back to the famous monsters of Legend. And also because it's trying, just like Tomland, it's trying to get around copyright issues. So it's saying this isn't the 20th Century Fox fly. It's saying this is like a generic fly. And, you know, I don't want to get personal about stuff, but I've had discussions with people involved with Mego online. And you know, it's not like I own stock in 20th Century Fox. I mean, what do I care? I mean, Disney bought 20th Century Fox, which really disappointed me because I liked 20th Century Fox as a studio. The only feature film that I've ever acted in was a 20th Century Fox movie. So I have a kind of a nostalgic connection for 20th Century Fox. They distributed a Brazilian film that I acted in, a feature film. So I always, when I hear that dum 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 da da da, I mean, when I hear that and see that opening, I get a nostalgic feeling because of that movie. So that's my kind of emotional connection to 20th Century Fox. But of course, I mean, I don't care if someone takes money out of Disney's pocket, more power to them. I think Disney ought to be broken up. I think Congress, Washington, our government ought to break up Disney and many other companies. I think it's too big. I think it's destructive to society to let these companies gobble up other companies and get bigger and bigger. So I've got no love for Disney. But I'm just kind of amused when people try to get away with something. And the fact is, the Fly is absolutely not a public domain character. It's a 20th Century Fox, now Disney character. Of course it is. Of course it is. And this is the Disney 20th Century Fox character of the Fly from the motion picture. And this, sure as heck, is the Cronenberg Fly on the back. Of course it is. There's no two ways about that. You know, let's not be silly here. Of course it is. But, I mean, if you can get around that, more power to you, fine. But just, you know, be real about what it is. It's an unlicensed figure of a movie character that is, you know, certainly the movie is under copyright. Whatever. But So, but they're trying to get around it by saying legend instead of, you know, saying it's a legendary character like the Tomlin one, and probably making it all black, you know. But it still has the one fly claw and the human hand like the one in the movie. So it has a lab coat like the one in the movie. But that's enough of that. I don't want to get too far into the weeds talking about that. I just wanted to say my piece. So I guess we'll put this over here. I'll put the fly over there. I think we said enough about the fly. We spent more time on that because it's the first one. We'll go through these others more quickly. All right. This is... see, I like how this... what's their name again? Zolo. Yeah, Zolo's room. I like how they put paper between each figure to cushion it. That's good. Good packing. I like that. So they all arrived in nice condition. All right, so here is the Canimit. I think I'm pronouncing that right. The Canimit from the Twilight Zone, classic episode of the Twilight Zone. Played by Richard Kiel. And this is an excellent looking representation of the character. Here's the back. And I like that they put a little more effort into the graphic design. You know, one of the weak points of New Mego is the graphic design on their toys. They don't do illustrations, like original illustrations. They use stock art, and the cards tend to look better if the licensor, the company that owns the license, owns the character. The cards tend to look better if that company supplies them with art that they're supposed to use, and then they kind of have to, really. I mean, there's guidelines. They have to use that art on the card. But when they're left to their own devices, they tend to use very generic stock art instead of hiring an illustrator, which was what I wish they would do, to paint a beautiful image of the toy or the character. Like in Mego's glory days, when the Mad Monsters and you know, the Western Figures and Planet of the Apes and Star Trek and all those classic 70s toy lines, they all had original, beautiful, painted artwork on the packages. I wish Mego would get back to that. But this is nice because they didn't just stick a picture of the character on the card. And let's see, who owns this character? This is CBS. This is licensed through CBS. So I'm sure then CBS supplied them with art of the character that they had to use, but they didn't just use it as is. They did do some graphic design and try to make it look very modern. I mean, you can, you know, like it or not like this approach, but at least they tried. They jazzed it up a little bit. So that's good. I like that. And it's labeled horror, which is interesting because it's not Twilight Zone, and particularly this episode, I think is more science fiction. And some of these, I thought, maybe I'm imagining things, but I thought some of them did say science fiction, but this one says horror. So, and he comes with this little cookbook to serve man. He's a nice figure. But let's look at something else here. So this is the Canimit from a previous toy line. This is the MC Canimit figure. Well, it's a combination of Biff Bang Pow and MC. And they did a great Twilight Zone action figure series. This is just one wave pictured. They did more than one wave. That's one wave on the back. I don't know if that's wave 1 or wave 2. I think it's wave 1. And I have a few from this. So it says series 2 right here. So I guess there was at least three different sets of these. I have a few. I wish I had more of these Biff Bang Pow MC Twilight Zone figures. They're pretty cool. But the new Mego one is very much a remake of the Biff Bang Pow. Now, it's not exactly the same. I'm looking at them side by side. And a lot of Megos, the new Mego figures are, they have DNA from previous toy lines by Biff Bang Pow or MC and other companies that have released 8-inch figures over the last 15 years. And the reason for that is that the consultant, Paul Clark, Dr. Mego, I can't forget his PhD, Dr. Mego, the consultant for Mego, was also involved with these other companies. And so he has access to some of these molds and these sculpts and for heads and accessories and things. So that's why you see a lot of shared DNA between the new Mego figures and some of these older figures. But usually they're not exactly the same. And like these are not exactly the same. And I don't know if it's because of the materials used or the way it's painted. I'm looking at the head, really. The head, to my eye, it doesn't look exactly the same. It's very, very close. And I'm sure this started with this head, but it looks like they did tweak it. I could be wrong, could be imagining that. Or it could just be the way it's painted or something, or different material. I've never squeezed these heads, but I suspect this head is harder than this head. I'm just guessing, having looked at several of these Megos. But, that's speculation. I've never opened them up to squeeze them and see which one. But they're probably made of different material, and that changes the look. So, it's not exactly the same. It's similar, but it's not exactly the same. The hands are different. This one has more standard Mego-style human hands. This one has monster hands that several of the monsters in the series have. This one has a nice shiny outfit. This one's not as shiny. They both have what I believe are Kiss boots. I don't remember. I'm not a Kiss fan, really, but I don't know which band member wears those boots. But a Kiss character wears boots like that, and that's where these boots come from, in both cases. And that makes the figure a little taller, because it's supposed to be a very tall character. And Richard Kiel was a tall actor, but, well, I don't know if in the show if he wore boots like that, but to make the figure, because it's an 8-inch figure, to make it taller instead of making a new body, they just had these platform boots. Now, which do I prefer here? I mean, they're both nice. The Biff Bang Pow one is supposed to be black and white. All the ones in that series are black and white. The Mego one is in color. Both of them have the To Serve Man book as an accessory. I like them both. It's hard to decide which I like more. And the more I look at these heads, the more I think that the difference is just the way it's painted. I don't think the sculpt is different. Could be wrong, but now I'm looking at the nose and the mouth and everything. I think it's the same sculpt. But the details on the Mego are a little softer. I think because of the material they use, all of these sculpts on the Mego heads look a little softer. I don't know. They're both pretty nice looking. I think I prefer I might prefer the Mego one. I don't know. It's a tough call. I like the shiny outfit. I like the monster hands. You know, I'm not sure. They're both, it's a tough call. They're comparable. Certainly, Mego did justice to the character on a par with what MC and Bifang Pow did. You can't say that one's significantly better or worse than the other. They're both good figures. So that's a Canimit. Alright, so I like both of those. Okay. Here is an interesting one. Kind of controversial. This is the... Oh, let's see here. I believe his name is Harold, isn't it? Yeah, I thought his name's not on the card. I think... Yeah, Harold. This is Harold the Scarecrow from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And it's interesting that most of these, I don't think they have the character names on them. Like the Twilight Zone, it doesn't say Canimit. Well, we'll see. This one does say Harold on the back. It does say Harold on the back. But on the front, it just says Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So I saw this movie. I mean, it's one of the last movies I saw in a theater before the pandemic. So it's one of the last theatrical films I saw back in fall of 2019. I didn't really see any Christmas films because you remember my cat Stinker was sick, and I just spent all my time with him through the holidays. So I wasn't going to the movies or doing anything. And then the pandemic hit, and you know. So one of the last films I saw in the theater was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And that's a film that was produced by Guillermo del Toro and directed by Andre Overdahl. And it's interesting to me because this, I believe, is the first licensed toy based on an Andre Overdahl film. He directed Troll Hunter and The Autopsy of Jane Doe before he did Scary Stories. And he's gone on to do other things too. But his three big horror movies are Troll Hunter, which I love. I love Troll Hunter. Autopsy of Jane Doe, which I love too. And Scary Stories, which I was very impressed with seeing it at the theater. My favorite of his so far is Troll Hunter. His first feature film. That's still my favorite. But all of his films are good, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of his work in the future. I feel like he's really someone to watch. I'm happy to see him go from independent film to more prominent independent film to big Hollywood movie. And he still is doing some smaller scale independent films too. He's going back and forth, but I would hope to see his career just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, so I don't know. He's one of my favorite modern horror directors, and he's got kind of like Del Toro or Tim Burton or other very visual filmmakers. He's got a very visual eye, and the creatures and things in his movies have a certain look. So one of these days he'll make something like Nightmare Before Christmas that is very marketable with different licensed characters, and you'll see a whole line of Overdahl monster toys and stuff, and that'll be a good day. Really, there should have been an entire line of monsters from this movie. I don't know why this wasn't merchandised. I mean, maybe it's just because they don't make toys anymore. That's why kids don't play with toys. I mean, what's the point? But if this movie had been made 20 years ago, there'd been a whole line of toys based on the monsters from this film. Because this is actually this is why I said controversial. This is probably the most difficult character to make in toy form of all the monsters in the movie. This is probably the most difficult one to create as a toy. So I don't know why Mego decided this was the one to take on, because he's got a hollow center in his post going through, and he's got wooden sticks for arms. So why did Mego say, this is the one of all the monsters in that movie, this is the one we're going to do? And if they were going to do one, why not give us 3 or 4? Have a whole line of scary stories, action figures. I would have loved that. I still would like that if they did that. Why just, and this is a criticism of modern Mego, they don't give you complete lines. They don't give you a complete set of characters. Out of a set that ought to have 6 or 8 characters, they'll give you 1, then maybe they'll give you 1 or 2 more, and that's it. And for a collector who likes to have a complete set, that's really aggravating. Like this Twilight Zone, who knows if they'll ever make another Twilight Zone character. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but if they don't, then this is just kind of floating out there by itself, as opposed to MC Biff Bang Pow that did that vast line, maybe too many characters from at least 3 different waves of Twilight Zone characters. They just did so many that you almost can't collect them all. So many. They may have gone overboard with that one, but like Scary Stories, if they had this license, that's an excellent opportunity to make a statement with this set and to say, we are Mego, and here's the Scary Stories collection, and have all the different monsters from that film. I would have bought them all. And it's becoming a cult film. And the director's a cult director, so he's got a fan base of people who will buy it because he directed it, and because Del Toro produced it. I love Guillermo del Toro, so you put all that together, and the Scary Stories books have a huge fan base. So you've got Del Toro, you've got Overdahl, you've got the Scary Stories books. A huge opportunity there to market this as a series of monsters and get it out when the movie was new. I mean, there's a sequel coming out, but it's, because of the pandemic, I don't think they've even started production yet. Oh, no, I think that maybe they did. I don't know. But there's going to be a sequel. But, why not do at least 4 different monsters from the movie with under the Scary Stories banner, similar packaging, and put them all out at one time? And I don't know. It's in my fantasy world. That's how I would do it. Well, so the interesting thing about Harold, one of the interesting things is how they did the arms. So he has wooden sticks for arms. He's not he's not jointed. He doesn't have elbow joints in the movie. I mean, you can see. Can you? Yes, you can see what his arms look like in the movie. You can see right there. So he's not. His arms are not jointed. He moves around like that. He can't move his arms. Although, I say that, and if you look at the back here, it looks like maybe it is jointed. I don't know where this illustration originates from. I'm assuming that, what studio is this? CBS Films. CBS Films. Aha. Okay, Fly's definitely not licensed. But that's interesting that they got this. Television City, a CBS company. CBS company for Canimit. And then Harold is CBS Films. Let's see if anything else as we go along is CBS. Because maybe that's how this assortment of characters came about. A deal with CBS. And then they got, with that deal, certain choices they could make of these characters. just speculating. Now I can't tell if his right arm is jointed or not. I'm assuming they both are jointed the same way. But that's a really weird way to make a toy. That is an odd joint. I've never seen a joint like that. I mean, that, you know, two flat pieces like that joined together, that looks like it will break if you move it one time. Certainly if you were a kid playing with this and you moved it a bit, it may break. So I would have rather they made it just one piece like I think it should be in the movie. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe he has a joint there, but even if he does, who cares? Mold it as one piece. Mold both of his arms as single pieces. I mean, they had to make an original mold anyway for these rectangular kind of erector set looking mechanical arms. Looks like a robot's arms. Why not just make, you know, wooden looking pieces that don't move? It would have been sturdier, and it would have been like the movie, you know, like the character in the movie. I don't know. And then he's got, it looks like standard Mego style hands. That's interesting. The character has gloves. I mean, he's a Scarecrow. I don't think not these are, the hands are not sculpted to look like gloves. They're just hands. Then in the middle, he's got that clear middle, and that's clever. To give him a clear middle with a post going through it to simulate that look. Then he's got that hollow middle with the post. His face is very nice. I mean, it looks like it should. It looks like Harold. Looks like the character, all right. I've heard that the shirt is from one of the Screaming Werewolf figures. I'm not sure if that's true. I didn't get out my Screaming Werewolf to check, so I don't know. But there's Harold. And I like him. So this is a very ambitious figure. You know, the construction is very different. Very unusual. Very unusual. Look, the abdomen and the arms, very unusual. And just taking on this character of a modern horror character like that. It's an ambitious project to make this toy. Did they bite off more than they could chew? Maybe. Maybe it would have been better to, if they were only going to make one character from this movie, I don't know if that was the right one to make. You know, why make one that's so hard to interpret in this format? Of all the monsters in the film, why pick the one that doesn't really translate well to the Mego style? But they did. They took it on, and, you know, and it turned out pretty good, really. I mean, I think it's a good-looking figure. So I don't know if, you know, they were so ambitious and they said, let's do something different, or if they didn't know what they were getting themselves into until they picked the character and said, hey, wait a minute, what have we done? We're going to make this character? Oh, how are we going to do that? I don't know. The big complaint I would have, though, is I wish the arms were single, solid pieces. That would have been better. It would have been sturdier. Would have been more like the character. I just don't have confidence that those joints are going to last. I think you move them a couple times and they're going to break. And if I didn't say already, it's labeled horror. So as an Andre Overdahl fan and as a Guillermo del Toro fan, I was very interested in that particular figure. Okay, here is Mr. Hyde. And this also generated some discussion online because the original prototype just did not look good. I hated the prototype, and a lot of other people did too. It just looked homemade and funky, but the finished toy, you know, it looks pretty good. I really can't complain. It looks pretty good. Here is Mr. Hyde. I like him. I think he's pretty nice looking. Some people didn't like the green skin complexion. Yeah, I don't mind. I think it's fine. And his hands are green. The prototype didn't have green hands. The prototype, the body and the hands didn't match the color of the head. But the finished product does. I like he's got his little Victorian background there. He's got kind of a weird outline around him. I don't know what that's about, but like a line around it, around where the bubble is. But I like the Victorian streak because it's kind of Lincoln-esque, like the Lincoln monsters. They have that environment background, you know, like the mummy is in an Egyptian tomb with pyramids outside, that kind of thing. The Phantom of the Opera is in an opera house. So I like that aspect of depicting a Victorian street in the background. So he's labeled horror. I guess all these so far except the Fly are labeled horror. One weird thing is that he's got a colon instead of a period. Mr. colon Hyde. And he's got Dr. Jekyll up here. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. colon Hyde. Why is it a colon instead of a period? That is kind of weird. I feel like there's a story there. Like, that's not an accident. There's something's going on there. I don't know what. I don't know where this artwork is from. The prototype card had artwork from one of the printed editions of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, one of the books, you know, printed book editions of the story. They took the cover art from one of the books and put it on the card. This one, I don't know where this is from. I'm sure it's some kind of stock art. I doubt very much it's, you know, original art. That's obviously stock art. This guy drinking, you know, Dr. Jekyll drinking his potion. But that's imaginative that's coming out of there. And, you know, you see the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. If they're going to use stock art, at least they're doing an imaginative job. I'm sure this is probably stock, the Victorian street. You know, these all could be different elements for all I know. This could be one element and another and another and another. I don't know, maybe I'm giving them way too much credit here, but if they took all that and combined it, then that's a step forward as far as the graphic design for their cards, instead of just taking a prepackaged image and slapping it on. So this is a famous still from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I want to say it's the Spencer Tracy version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I could be mistaken. It could be Frederick March, but I don't think so. Monster kids who know better will be yelling at me right now. I don't remember. I could be very mistaken. The more I think about it, the more I think maybe I am mistaken. I'm not sure. It's either Frederick March or Spencer Tracy's version that has this famous still that has this shadow on the wall. He has Dr. Jekyll, and I think it's his wife or his fiance. It's not the kids cover your ears, the prostitute. I don't think it's her. I could be wrong. I think it's him and his fiance that are sitting here in the foreground, and the shadows on the wall behind them. And I'm sure that I'll find it when I'm editing this and superimpose it, and probably put a caption saying whether it's the Spencer Tracy version or the Frederick March version. But this is a famous still. That's where they got this shadow. Let's see. Is there anything interesting to read here? Like, nope. It says Mego Monsters again up here. Another collector pointed out that all these cards talk about the official Mego fan club at mego.toys, and apparently that doesn't exist. It's on all these cards, but apparently it doesn't exist and has not existed for a while. So it's odd that they still have that text on the card. Well, I mean, he's a nice figure. I like him. He's cool. I like his Barnabas Collins style coat. Um, Again, this is one of those things where I've seen these taken out of the card, and as soon as you take him out and start messing with him, that coat starts to look very shabby very quickly. As soon as you start moving him and doing stuff with him, the coat doesn't look quite so tailored after a while. But on the bubble, undisturbed, it looks great. And like I said, I don't really blame him for that because most action figures, when you start moving them and undressing them and dressing them again, the clothes get all messed up. It's cool that he has a removable top hat. I like that. That has possibilities for customization. The only thing is, it's really big. It's really gigantic on him. I've seen many pictures of him wearing the top hat, and it's just like a Mad Hatter kind of top hat. It's really big and it looks kind of comical. Instead of making him look sinister, he looks kind of comical. I don't know if it's possible to have made it any smaller, given the realities of having to fit the hat over his head. Maybe they couldn't help doing that. Although the Mego Wizard of Oz, the actual wizard himself, from the 70s, they did a line of Wizard of Oz figures in the 1970s, and one of the figures was the wizard. And he has a top hat, and I don't remember if it comes off or not, but I think it does. I think it does. And I don't think it's big like this top hat. I think it's more in proportion to the figure's head. So I don't know why this had to be so big, but I mean, it's cool that it's a removable hat. That's neat, but it's too big. It just looks like a Mad Hatter, like Alice in Wonderland. So that's too bad. I would have rather, I think Mr. Hyde needs a hat. Maybe they should have just sculpted it on him, but then the bubble would have been an issue. It wouldn't fit in the bubble. So, okay. I don't know. Maybe they could have made the hat out of a softer material so it was more stretchy, and that would have helped. They could have had a smaller hat. I don't know. So it's nice that he has an accessory like that, but it's too big. And he doesn't have a cane. That would have been the other thing. I always imagine Mr. Hyde having a cane because he clobbers people with his cane in the story. In I think both movies that March and there's been several Mr. Hyde movies, but the two, I guess there's three really famous ones. There's the John Barrymore silent one, and the Frederick March one in the 30s, and the Spencer Tracy one I think is in the 40s. But as you see in the back, he has a cane. So a cane accessory would have just put this over the top, and that might have helped make up a little bit for the oversized hat if he had a cane. Though these monster hands, I like the monster hands, but they don't hold accessories well, or at all really. They can't hold accessories. But that's one little complaint, I guess, that maybe he should have had a cane. Maybe the cane would have been a higher priority than the hat. Although the cane would have made him look even more like Barnabas Collins. He already kind of reminds me of Barnabas Collins just because of the outfit. I like that it harkens back to like the Tom Land Famous Monsters of Legend and the Lincoln Monsters. There really should have been a Mr. Hyde for one of those. There wasn't. Especially Lincoln. Lincoln really should have made a Mr. Hyde. They didn't. They made a Mr. Rock, a Star Trek Mr. Spock ripoff. I don't know why they did that. He should have been Mr. Hyde. That would have fit perfectly with the Lincoln set. And I think that maybe there was some inspiration here because the Lincoln monsters, their faces are not like Frankenstein, Dracula, Phantom. Their faces are very human, almost too human. It's a weird look. They don't look like monsters. They're almost like I hate to say it, like a girl doll, like Ken, from Barbie, almost like that. but just tweaked to be monsters, like fangs or something. The Phantom of the Opera, he's purple, and he's got an open mouth, but he's not really disfigured. He's not really, not in an extreme way. In Frankenstein, he's green, he's got scars, but he's not that monstrous. And Lincoln Dracula he looks like he's got mascara or something, but aside from his fangs, he's not that monstrous. So I think it kind of harkens back to that you've got Mr. Hyde, and he's kind of human looking, he's not that monstrous, but he's got a weird color, kind of like the Lincoln Phantom's purple, and the color is kind of what makes him a monster. This is green, and that kind of is what makes him a monster. If he were just tan colored, he would just look like a grumpy looking man. But because he's kind of green, that makes him kind of monsterish. So I have a feeling there might be a callback to the Lincolns. So I'm seeing an awareness of the Lincoln and Tomlin monsters in this set. And that's good. I like to see that. It's clear that the people involved were aiming for a callback to those figures. And I've said before, this modern Mego really seems to me to be more like the Azrak Hamway of the current toy market than the standard. What Mego in its day was the gold standard of action figures. And these figures seem a little bit, off market. There's a little bit more of a rack toy aesthetic to them. I don't think that's intended, but that's what's there. And it's nice to kind of own that and embrace it, and to run toward it instead of away from it, and to be hearkening back to Tomland and Lincoln instead of trying to redo the Mego Mad Monster kind of style. Okay, well, anyway, let's keep going. And we've still got a couple. This is a long episode. Okay, here is The Exorcist. And again, it doesn't say Reagan. It says The Exorcist. It says the name of the movie, not the character. So that's Reagan from The Exorcist, the little girl who's possessed in The Exorcist. There's the back. And I don't think it says Reagan on the back either. Unlike Harold had his name on the back, this one does not have Reagan's name on the back. It says Mego Monsters up there, The Exorcist. And this is decent artwork. It's got the famous steps from The Exorcist right there. And I think it's the same. Yeah, it's the same artwork on the front, and the back is just reversed. Let's see. Is she on a bed or something? No, it's just a red background. Red background. Let's get a close-up of her. Now, I like this figure a lot. I had misgivings about this, whether they were going to do her justice. Because the prototype, poor Mego, I mean, when it comes to prototypes, oh gosh, that's one of their weak points. They always show these horrible photos of the prototypes. Good grief. I don't know. It's like someone's grandmother is taking these photos of these prototypes. They're in odd poses, and they don't look like they're quite ready for prime time. They're like someone just sitting on a desk and took a camera phone or something, or a cell phone and a smartphone, whatever, and just took some weird pictures at odd angles. Oh gosh. So, they're one of the weak points in the promotion is the prototype photos are always, they don't really make you excited for the product. So I was a little concerned about this figure based on the prototype pictures, the promotional pre-release pictures, but the actual figure looks pretty darn good. I like the figure. I do like her. And I think she looks like the character. Likeness is pretty good. And I like, she reminds me of the Thriller Graveyard Gang. Particularly, what is the, I think it's Karen, the female zombie in that set. I might have that wrong. I think it's Karen. But anyway, there's a female character in the Thriller Graveyard Gang Bendy series, and she looks a lot like that. A lot like this figure. Just everything about the color of the skin and this way what the face looks like and the hair and the costume and just everything about it reminds me of that Thriller figure. I don't think that's intentional. I think that's coincidence, but particularly the skin color is just like that Thriller figure. And Reagan in the film didn't have gray skin like this, so they made that choice to make her skin this color to make her more zombie-like, and so that adds to the making her look kind of like the Thriller figures. She reminds me of a Thriller figure, a Thriller Graveyard Gang Bendy. That's, I'm sure, not what was intended, but that's what she reminds me of. And I like that she's on a child body. At first, I think one of the prototypes, she was on an adult body, like the same size as this, and all the fans online said, boo, don't do that. So I'm glad they made her a child, like she should be. Now, just 5 minutes ago, it would have seemed bizarre for any toy company to make a Exorcist figure. I think McFarlane made one in the 90s, but it was more of a display piece. It didn't move. I think it was on a bed or something, but I don't think it was posable. I don't know. It was more of a diorama. So there haven't been Exorcist toys in forever, and just in the past year, we started seeing some. Like last Halloween, there were some Exorcist toys, not action figures, but like plush toys and stuff. So I think there was some kind of a marketing push a year or two ago. Whoever owns the rights made a push to try to license this property and merchandise it. It is Warner Brothers, not CBS. That's interesting. So there goes my theory that there was some CBS connection here. This is Warner Brothers. So they apparently made a decision that it was time to start merchandising this character. I don't know why. Because suddenly after 50 years of no merchandise, poof, we got multiple pieces of merchandise based on it. Oh yeah, let's show her horizontal like she would be in her bed. That's how she would be in her bed, and she'd levitate like that. And we get a priest action figure saying that the power of Christ compels you. You start levitating. Some people say that the collar is too wide, and I kind of chalk that up to the way a toy looks in the package. A lot of times in a package, the collars go up or the sleeves go too far down, or whatever. But once you start moving it, that all kind of settles in place. It doesn't bother me too much. It's certainly not, if that's the worst crime, that's not a big deal. The costume looks pretty good. It has kind of a dingy look like it should. I've heard that the color of her hair isn't right. That's too dark. Okay. But, the color of her skin isn't right. She's got this kind of blue-gray skin, so it's kind of a stylized, more zombie-like appearance, and that might have been a deliberate decision because they might have thought maybe The Exorcist is too old, people don't know what it is, and so they would look at it like a zombie figure and buy it because they think it's a zombie. I don't know. Is this card kind of bent? It's a little wavy. Card's a little, I don't know if you can see that. Card's a little wavy. Most of these cards are very nice, though. Oh, get out of here. Come on. All right, here is Leatherface. Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. This is the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is not the original. So this is Leatherface from the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Here he is. There's a Leatherface from the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is horror. There he is. And here again, the prototype picture for this looked just awful. I mean, oh, it was embarrassing. The prototype, it was a joke. Everyone was laughing at it justifiably. I mean, it was just ludicrous. But the finished product looks pretty darn good. So obviously that prototype was very prematurely released. The photos of the prototype, they should not have released those pictures. It was weird. It looked like a Lincoln figure or something, but not in a good way, not in an intentional way. It was too skinny and just weird. It just looked bizarre. But this looks like the actual character. You know, he's pretty good looking. I've got a lot of glare on this. The darker the costume is, the more glare there is on the bubble. You can see the reflection of the room and all that good stuff. He's got these dark arms, and apparently that's because the character in the movie has some kind of leather on his arms. So, I mean, that's it. His skin isn't dark, but he's got like leather around his arms. So that's why they made his arms like that. It would have been nice if this had been the original Leatherface, but you know, NECA already did an excellent version of that. And I doubt that they could outdo what NECA did. And I don't remember if NECA did this version of Leatherface or not. They did two versions of the original movie Leatherface in his two best known masks. And then I want to say they did the sequel, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I think they did that Leatherface. And I don't know if they did the remake one or not. So did I show you the back? Here's the back. So, we have just photos of the character from the movie. You know, I'm sure that, let's see who this is. Vortex Inc. Kim Hinkle. Toby Hooper. So 3 people own the trademarks. Vortex Inc., Kim Hinkle, and Toby Hooper. That's interesting. That's owned, split up like that. So I'm sure that the licensor provided them with these photos and the logo and photos they could use. So they just put it all together. And that's fine. I'd rather see that than like some kind of weird stock art of a chainsaw floating in the air, or a skull behind it, or some kind of blood splatter, or a silhouette of a girl screaming. I mean, that's what it would have looked like if they didn't have visual material from the licensor. And this I'm saying too much. This card is a little bent too. The ones towards the bottom of the box seem to have that. Well, let's see. What else can we say about this? There was some controversy about the chainsaw itself that blew up online. They had they what did they do? Oh, I don't know. They bought a chainsaw from like a customizer, and they used it in the prototype at a trade show, and the customizer didn't give permission to use it that way, and just blew up. So I I don't know any details about that, so I shouldn't say any more about it. But I can't look at the chainsaw and not think of that, because I remember that little collector controversy that blew up online. So that's that's neither here nor there. The chainsaw, it only looks okay. The blade should be bigger. Should have a bigger blade, but it's not a bad little chainsaw. Oh, let's see here. Okay, here's the final one. This is Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs. There is Dr. Lecter. And it doesn't say Hannibal Lecter, it just says Silence of the Lambs. That is supposed to be Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs. You can see he's got a mask right there. And it says horror. Here's the back with poster art. There were different posters. This isn't the style A that had Jodie Foster's face, Clarice's face in the moth. There was another poster, this one, that had Hannibal's face. And it's interesting, it doesn't say Hannibal Lecter as far, no, it doesn't say it anywhere. This is, the trademark is Orion Pictures Corporation and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. But now this is weird. Let's see this. Copyright Ed Cubberley, 1991. All rights reserved. Okay, so apparently, from what I've heard, Ed Cubberley has the copyright on the mask. It doesn't say that, but that's what I've heard online. I mean, that could be wrong, but it's got Orion Pictures and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer as the trademark owners on Silence of the Lambs, and then it's got this weird little copyright Ed Cubberley underneath it. I don't know if that you can see that. I think, yeah, you can see that. And from what I understand, Ed Cubberley owns the copyright on the mask design. So that's really weird. Do they have to have a different license on the mask? That's weird. I mean, was it designed for the movie or not? Or was it a pre-existing, like a piece of art that, you know, the mask was like some kind of a sculpture that they used for the movie? I don't know. That's kind of strange. Now, this figure has garnered a lot of criticism for not looking like Anthony Hopkins. And I have to agree that, to me, that does not look like Anthony Hopkins. Some people say it looks like the father on that 70s show. I kind of see that. To me, my first impression, it looks like Mr. Mxyzptlk. Like the Mego 1970s Mr. Mxyzptlk action figure. That's kind of what it reminds me of. I can kind of imagine Mxyzptlk's purple hat on his head. But it definitely doesn't look like Anthony Hopkins. I don't see Anthony Hopkins in this sculpt. And I think they did. Some people have said that it's deliberately not Anthony Hopkins because they didn't have an actor likeness license for Anthony Hopkins. I don't know if that's true or not, because that's definitely Hopkins right there. Now, some people have also said that that's not Anthony Hopkins. I don't know. I haven't compared this to stills from the movie. I know that there is an image like that in the movie, but I haven't compared it to the actual movie stills to find out for sure. So I don't know if that's Anthony Hopkins or not. Some people have said it's not, but I have no idea. I think maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I definitely remember. I mean, to my eyes, it looks like him. I didn't question it until I read someone else questioning it, so I have no clue if that's right or wrong. But I can tell you that does not look like Anthony Hopkins. That does not look like him at all. Yeah. So I don't know if they were trying to make him look like Anthony Hopkins or the opposite, trying to avoid making him look like Anthony Hopkins because they didn't have the rights to the actor likeness. I don't know, but it's a miss. It is a miss strike. It does not look like Anthony Hopkins. Sorry. The now apparently this costume he's wearing was originally supposed to be a Michael Myers costume. Because originally Michael Myers was supposed to be in this assortment. And I think it was the Rob Zombie Michael Myers. But for whatever reason, it didn't get canceled. It's postponed. There's still like an upcoming wave. They're still saying that there's going to be a Michael Myers. So it got postponed. But the prototype Michael Myers had a costume like this. So apparently, I don't know if this is absolutely true, just from what I could see looking at the prototype and what other people have said, that this was originally Michael Myers' costume, and when he was removed from the lineup, they replaced him with Hannibal Lecter because the costume could be the same. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can believe it. It does look like it could be Michael Myers' costume. Some people are complaining that Hannibal Lecter never wore the mask when he was in this costume, and which is true. He had a white straitjacket when he had the mask. He didn't have this blue outfit. So the costume and the mask don't go together. But I can understand if you're going to make a Hannibal Lecter action figure, people are going to want the mask. You know, it's kind of like having a Phantom of the Opera figure. If it's a cheap one like Lincoln, no. But if it's trying to be a little more upscale, it would be nice to have a mask. Now, Mego did make a Phantom of the Opera in one of the previous waves, a Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera, and they did not include a mask. They probably should have, but it's kind of the same thing. When you make a Phantom, people really want a mask. When you make Hannibal Lecter, I can understand people want the mask. Okay, but that's not the costume he wore in the movie when he had the mask. He had a straitjacket when he had the mask. So this, I mean, I love the idea of making a Hannibal Lecter action figure. I think that's a great idea. I love the character of Hannibal Lecter, but I think maybe NECA would have been a better company to produce that character. There have been other Hannibal Lecter action figures, not Mego style, I don't think, but there have been other all plastic with sculpted on clothes. There have been other Hannibal Lecter figures in the past, and I don't think any of them have really hit the nail on the head, capturing Anthony Hopkins' likeness. So Mego's not the first one to do that. Anthony Hopkins, I think it's kind of like Bela Lugosi, where the likeness is really hard to nail down. There's something so subtle about it, and you've got to just hit it right on the head to get it right, or else it looks completely wrong. 9 out of 10 Bela Lugosi sculpts don't look like Bela Lugosi. It's such a fine line between nailing it and completely failing. You've got to get it just right to look like Bela, and if it doesn't look just right, it's completely wrong. And I think Anthony Hopkins is like that. You've got to make him look just exactly exactly right or it's completely wrong. So it's a hard likeness to nail down. And I don't think they succeeded this time. I do like their Bela Dracula figures from a couple years ago. I think those were some of the best Bela figures ever made. But they didn't hit the ball out of the park with this Hannibal, unfortunately. And maybe this was like a last minute replacement for Michael Myers. Maybe they weren't even planning on doing him. And they just kind of looked and said, well, what licenses are we working on? Oh, Hannibal could wear the same costume. Let's try that. I don't know. Maybe there was a rush, and that's why the sculpt doesn't look quite right. I'm just speculating. For whatever reason, who knows why, the sculpt is the most disappointing sculpt out of all of these. And probably the most disappointing figure, because I really like Hannibal Lecter. If this hit the ball out of the park, I would be like, wow, this is an amazing figure, because I like this character so much. I would really love to have a great Hannibal Lecter action figure, but this is not it. You know, I'm surprised NECA hasn't made one. I'm sure they'll give it a try one of these days. Speaking of NECA, there was some very disappointing news today about the Jaws line, which I've been very much looking forward to. They announced today that they're canceling the Brody, the Chief Martin Brody action figure in the Jaws line. Ugh. So that really upset me. You know how much I like Jaws. If you saw my Jaws episode, I was really looking forward to those action figures. So, I mean, if they can't do Brody, I don't know why they even bothered. They should just cancel the whole stupid thing. I mean, a Jaws line that doesn't have Brody in it, that's ridiculous. I'm hoping they can continue some negotiations and pull a rabbit out of their hat and save this somehow and get us that Brody figure. Because I'm reluctant to buy the NECA Jaws line if it doesn't have Brody. You gotta have Brody. Come on, why bother if you can't do Brody? That's stupid. Yeah, but that's a different line. We're talking about Mego Wave 8 Horror. They've announced a Wave 9 that is only going to be available at Walmart. So you're not going to be able to order it from independent retailers, apparently, like I did this one. You're going to have to find it at Walmart. And that line is going to have Chucky. I don't know if it's the original Chucky or the remake Chucky, but it's going to have Chucky. And it's going to have, interestingly enough, a Hammer Dracula. So I'm assuming a Christopher Lee Dracula. That's different. I wonder where that came from, how they got that license. Because that's been notoriously a difficult license to obtain. But apparently they're going to do Hammer Dracula. Are they going to do a Hammer line? No. Didn't sound like it, but they're going to do Hammer Dracula. And they're going to do The Creature from the Black Lagoon, licensed by Universal Studios. So that did excite me when I heard they're doing a creature. But then I saw more or less a prototype. I'm not sure if it was a prototype. It was kind of hinted at, like maybe it was a prototype. I saw a picture of what it was, not exactly what it was going to look like, but close to what it was going to look like. That was how it was presented. Like, it's going to look very similar to this. That's how it was presented. And it's basically the MC Creature from the Black Lagoon, which you've seen on this program from several years ago. MC made a series of Universal Monsters action figures, including a Creature from the Black Lagoon. And their creature was a very excellent Mego-style creature. It's a great figure, but we've had that one. It's been done. I was really hoping for an original sculpt, an original take on the character, and not just recycle the same figure. As I said before, there's a lot of DNA from MC and Biff Bang Pow and other figures from other companies in the past 10, 15 years. A lot of the DNA is in some of these new Megos because the consultant for these figures also worked on those figures. So we have what is essentially a remake of the MC creature, and that bores me. I mean, I'll buy it, I guess. It's a creature, why not? But I was really hoping for an original version, a new sculpt, a new take on how to present the creature in a Mego format. So I'm hoping it won't be as similar as that picture I saw. I'm hoping that the finished product is more different. It differentiates itself from the MC version, so that they're two very different figures. I hope. I would hate for it to just look like the MC, because we've got that. If you want that figure, it's available. You can buy that. But that's been announced. That wave has been announced, and they're going to do Ultraman figures. So the Mego president, Marty Abrams, in an online event several weeks ago, he held up a Ultraman head and said the head's going to look like this. And it was the original Ultraman from the 60s. But then I've heard that the first Ultraman figure is not going to be that one. It's going to be one of the later Ultraman. So I'm not sure what's going on there. And they've announced other things. There's going to be a line of DC superheroes: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. But it's at just one store chain. I don't know how to pronounce the name. It's Meyer or whatever. I had never heard of the store chain before this announcement about these figures. I'd never heard of it before, and we don't have them where I live. So, but I couldn't care less about the DC superheroes anyway. So whatever, knock yourself out. But if they had said that monsters were only going to be available at that store, then I'd be like, then I'd be upset. I'm already a little that they're only the next wave of monsters is only going to be at Walmart. I've got Walmarts nearby. I can go buy at Walmart, but I like ordering the figures just to know I have them, and to know that they're going to be in decent shape. And I'm not going to have to run all around town to umpteen different stores to see to get each one and get them in good shape, and waste a day driving to stores and not find them. It's better just order them. On the other hand, there's something kind of fun about going into a store and seeing the toys hanging on the shelf or hanging on the peg hooks. That's kind of fun. But you notice all of these things, every single one of them says 17 plus, ages 17 plus. They're for adults. All of these, every single one says that. Let's see, just to verify. This doesn't, the Canimit doesn't have it, but all the rest of them say 17 plus, for ages 17 plus. So these are for adults. They're not for kids anyway. But still, it's kind of fun to see the toys hanging on the store shelves. So that's it. That's the end of it. My take on these is that they're generally pretty good. The prototypes, a lot of those prototypes did not look good, but the finished product looks pretty good. Now, I've seen other videos where people took these out of the package and experienced a lot of quality control issues. There was one collector who did a series of videos this past week, and his Mr. Hyde had a band broken inside of the body, so that one arm and one leg was falling out. And the mask on Hannibal Lecter was kind of weird. It was sticking in a weird direction, not really fitting on his face. And the fly, his plastic was marred. It had like scarring on the plastic, like the mold was dirty, hadn't been cleaned out between, I don't know, batches. I don't know if they clean the mold out each time. I don't know what they do, but it looked like some kind of contamination had gotten into the mold and made weird marks on the plastic. Oh, I don't know what else was going on. Seemed like there was another one that had some kind of an issue. I don't remember what it was, so whatever. But anyway, so there were some quality control issues that collector noted. So if I opened these up, who knows, maybe the arms would be falling off. I don't know. It doesn't look like it. Just looking in the package, it doesn't look like, I don't see any sign that anything's broken. But I'm not going to take these out. Like the card says, these are for adults. These are not to play with. So they're supposed to be collected just like that. And if you open them up, you just set it somewhere on a shelf, and that's it. Do I like that? No, I'd rather they were durable and they could be played with, because I want to collect toys. I don't want to collect collector's items. I want to collect toys. But the reality is that, kids just don't play with toys anymore. Toys are not for kids anymore. Old idiots like me are the ones buying toys because we had them when we were kids. And kids today want video games. They play video games. They go online. They play with their phones. They don't play with figures that much. Really, really young kids maybe, but once they get to the age where they would have in the past played with figures like this, instead they're playing with digital things. The digital world is their playground now. They want digital playthings, virtual playthings. They don't want hunks of plastic and fabric. That makes me sad. I feel like it's more imaginative to role play with toys. But, every generation has their thing. I'm sure that when my generation was playing with action figures, there were old folks saying, well, in my day, we had tin and aluminum and steel trucks and trains and wooden dolls and stuff like that. And that's real toys. These plastic action figures, that's not real toys. I remember when I started collecting, there was a prejudice against plastic. I remember the older collectors saying, that's plastic. I don't buy plastic junk. There was a prejudice against collecting toys made of plastic when I started collecting. The older collectors who were 20, 30 years older than me, they didn't want plastic. If it was made of plastic, they didn't want it. A real toy was made of metal. So, every generation has their own unique taste. In the 90s, and in the 80s too, but in the 90s, the solid plastic toys, they had the sculpted on clothes from like mid 80s through the 90s. I was looking at that saying, where are the clothes? Why don't they have cloth costumes? I didn't like the sculpted on clothes. So that was my version of that. Like, well, in my day, action figures had clothes and they were taller. So now kids play with digital things. You can't really collect digital stuff. I know there are, I don't play video games. I have no clue, but I know there are things that, my brother had an experience with this, where you can buy a virtual object to use in a game, and there's a secondhand market where people can charge a lot of money if they have these objects, like things that you're supposed to acquire in the game. You can sell them to other people. You can sell them on eBay, and you can spend a lot of money on it. I think he spent $50 on for his daughter, some object that was supposed to be used in the game, and he bought and gave it to her as a gift, this digital virtual thing. And then she let a friend use it, and then the friend didn't give it back or something like that, and she lost the gift. This is digital. This is not physical objects. These are just digital virtual things, and yet there's a secondhand market for it. There's a secondhand aftermarket for things that don't really exist. They're just ideas, just virtual ideas in the digital realm. So maybe, years from now there'll be collectors doing presentations like this, showing you a screen with some digital virtual thing from years ago in 2020. Here's a rare object from that game. Very few of these are left. It's just digital. It's a digital file, but this is the real thing. Who knows? Could be how things go. So, we're about done. I did want to, I hate to get negative, but there is an elephant in the room that I need to address. There's been a lot of drama online over Mego. And I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge it. There's been a lot of strife among collectors who are interested in Mego, and they've divided into different factions. And these factions are feuding. And I'm not going to get into the reasons. There's different sides. You ask one person, they'll tell you one thing. You ask another person, they'll tell you another thing. Everyone's got their own reality. There's always more than one side to a story. I'm not going to try to litigate either side. But there's two main sides, but it's more fractured than that. But it's really sad to see all this drama over this. So stupid. I understand that it's not really over the toys, it's over respect, just dealing with people in a decent way. I understand that, it's about emotions. It's not about the toys, it's about emotions. I get that. But how did these feelings get hurt? They got hurt over this stuff. It's just not worth it. It's just not even worth it. Not remotely. Not remotely. So I don't know what to say about that, except I can't look at these toys and not think of that. Now, if you're not in any of those online groups, or you're not in certain circles, then you are blissfully unaware of what I'm talking about, and that's good. You should stay unaware. Do not go seeking that knowledge. Stay out of it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, good. You don't want to know. There's no reason for you to know. But I am in those groups, and I am in those circles, and I do know those people, and I know I have friends on different sides of this, and it feels a little like children whose parents are getting a divorce, and the children are kind of huddled in a room listening to their parents arguing in the next room. It's uncomfortable, to say the least. So I've been in similar situations before with collecting disputes where collectors got mad at each other. It's very sad. I can say is it's brought out the worst in people. No one really looks good in this situation. It's brought out the worst in people. Everyone looks bad. And I don't think it has to be that way. So I would encourage people to rise above the situation and understand that it's a bunch of dumb toys, really. It should be fun to stand here or sit here and yakety yak about toys, but it's a bunch of dumb toys, not worth getting upset about. It's not worth treating people badly or holding a grudge or obsessing on it. It's not worth trying to, build a reputation on it. I don't know what reputation I have about this stuff, but I would rather my reputation be based on artistic things I do or work I do with kids with disabilities at my job, or things in the arts, or things that to help kids with disabilities, or stuff like that. That's where I want my reputation. I don't want my reputation based on this. So, I mean, if I were manufacturing these things, that'd be different. That'd be my occupation. I understand. But if you're just in the collecting realm, just, oh man, everyone, just get over it. Just get over it and move past it. Don't bring yourself down obsessing on it. It just doesn't look good. It looks bad. It looks real bad. Everybody. No one is the exception. Everybody. Everyone looks bad with this situation. So that has an effect on my attitude. I can't just joyously talk about toys knowing that there's all this arguing and bitterness and bad feelings revolving around this stuff. And it's a little microcosm. It's, if you are not in those groups and you don't know those people, you don't know anything about it, and that's great. Continue down that path. Don't find out. Don't seek that knowledge. Don't try to figure out what's going on. Forget it. Doesn't involve you. Great. But if you are in those groups and you do know those people, then you're getting an earful of this stuff, or if not now, you did, and it's still kind of brewing under the surface. So that's just sad. So it makes it less fun to collect these toys. It interferes with my enjoyment of collecting, because I care more about people than I do about toys. So I can't go merrily along knowing that there's bad feelings involved. So it's a problem. I almost didn't buy these because of that. I almost didn't buy these. And the reason I did buy them was because I have this program, and I've reviewed them in the past, and I felt like I had a responsibility to people watching to present these. Like, this is something you expect of this program. You expect to see a review of these figures. So I felt like I had to do that. Now, that being said, this series is really about vintage toys. So don't expect to always see a review of the new monster toys coming out. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, there was the Jaws stuff. I don't know what's going on now with that. I was looking forward to that. Unfortunately, it's not coming out. But there's Trick or Treat Studios has a new line of Michael Myers figures that are like $100-something each. And Super 7 has a new wave of Universal Monsters figures. And NECA has all kinds of stuff coming out besides the Jaws. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm sure there's some cool stuff for Halloween that's coming out, the holiday Halloween. There's a lot of stuff, and I can't drop $1,000 on all this stuff. I can't afford that. So, and no one's sending me free toys to review. So, don't. So I apologize if I don't review all the new current stuff. I'll try to keep up with some of it, but the focus of the series is definitely vintage toys, so I won't always be able to do this and review the new toys. Can't afford it, and it's not really why we're here. We're here more for the vintage stuff. So just putting that out there for the future, so you don't say, well, why isn't he reviewing the new, like the next wave of Megos? I don't know if I'll review those. Or Trick or Treat Studios, those figures are really expensive. I don't know if I'm going to have those. So just don't expect new toy reviews. I'll do it if I can, but if I can't, I can't. the new season of Basement of Horror will begin in October, a few weeks away. We will have another giveaway. I don't know what it will be. Haven't decided yet. But we'll have a toy giveaway like we did last year. In the first few episodes, we'll be Halloween oriented like they were. I thought that went very well last year, so we'll do that again. And then we'll start up with shows highlighting vintage monster toys. And I hope you'll join me. Last season was really dramatic. A lot of bad things happened last season. The whole world pretty much had an apocalypse. Yeah, it was a lot of personal bad things. I was injured. I was sick. I had the government came down with that COPPA thing. My poor cat Stinker got sick and ended up finally passing away. And then to top it all off, at the end, the entire world came to an end, basically. By the end of the season, we had a global apocalypse. So, I hope this next season is not so dramatic. We've got the election coming. Oh boy. Who knows what's going to happen as a result of that. I'll try to stay healthy. And just hopefully we'll have a positive season 3 of Basement of Horror. I hope. All right, I think I've said my piece about everything. Again, my feelings about these Megos, these figures are generally positive. The only one really I don't like is the Hannibal Lecter. I think that's a fail. The rest of them, they're pretty good. Favorites, I want to say, that Fly, even though maybe I sounded a little down on that Fly, but no, he's pretty good. That Fly is perhaps my favorite. I like Harold. I mean, he's a weird construction in the way he's designed, but Harold is maybe my second favorite. And then, even though I don't really like the character of the remake Leatherface, that maybe is fourth. And then Reagan fifth. And then Hyde sixth. And the Canimit seventh, only because it's so close to the earlier one. If there hadn't been an earlier one, I would raise that up a bit. And then the only one which isn't so hot is Lecter. So that's my assessment of these. If you like them, buy them. If you don't, don't. It's up to you. If it gives you joy, buy them. If it doesn't, do not buy them. No one's forcing you to buy them. But if it's fun for you and you enjoy having these in your collection, go for it. Now you've seen them up close. You know what's out there. You know what they're all about. You can make your decision, buy them or not. All right. I think that's it. I can't think of anything more to say. How many hours is this? 3 hours? I don't know. It's a long time. So I'll see you very soon with the start of the 3rd season of Basement of Horror. And we'll have some Halloween episodes and a Halloween giveaway. And then we'll proceed with vintage monster toys for the rest of 2020 and into 2021. I hope you're looking forward to it. That's it. Remember, he who dies with the most toys just has a bunch of stupid toys. Good night.